All right, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Matt. Welcome to the Sin Bin. Now, let me start by addressing the hairless elephant in the room, and that is me. Yes, I had to shave my head. I'm not going through leukemia. I'm not going through old age or anything like that. This is actually my corona cut. It was just getting way too long. I needed to clear it up. It was getting way too hot. So this is my corona cut. But now that that's out of the way, I'm not here to talk about hair, okay? Maybe in the future I might create a channel about that, but I'm actually here to talk about one Anthony Mantha. Yes, the guy next to me. I'm actually a big fan of Anthony Mantha. And recently I was surfing the internet, surfing the old Facebook there, and I came across an article. And the article states that the Detroit Red Wings, they're going to be going through some changes in the future, some rebuilds if you'd want. The team is expected to let go of Jimmy Howard during the free agency period, along with defenseman Travis Daly and forward Sam Gagner. However, they might lose another forward through restricted free agency as well. Anthony Mantha will be a restricted free agent this offseason, and it's not sure if he's interested in staying around. According to GC Lajoie of TVA Sports, Mantha doesn't get along with head coach Jeff Blashill at all and would consider signing an offer sheet with the Montreal Canadiens. Wow, so big name drop there. One of the worst kept secrets in hockey is the relationship between Mantha and the Red Wings, specifically head coach Jeff Blashill. Is, for lack of a better word, tumultuous. The Canadiens have a lot of cap space to make a significant offer to Mantha. However, the Red Wings have the cap space to match. So we're going to get to that in a little bit. There's a lot there to unwrap, okay? So I'm going to kind of go through it piece by piece. First of all, in case you guys are wondering, I'm from the Quebec region, so I am familiar with TVA. I'm forgetting what it stands for off the top of my head, but TVA Sports, JC Lajoie is a Canadian commentator. He's a sports commentator. I'm not too sure about his credibility, okay? He's not up there with the Bob McKenzie, obviously. He's not up there with the Darren Dreggers of this world, okay? So whenever you see something from a reporter like that, you have to take it with a grain of salt. Because part of it might be the reporter speculating. Or I say reporter, he's actually a radio host. So take that with a huge grain of salt. But whether or not this is going to happen, I think if you look at the logistics of it, this is a real possibility that a team may offer sheet Anthony Mantha. The reasons why I will get to later. But first, I want to talk a little bit about Mantha, what type of player he is, because I'm not sure how many of my how many of my listeners watch the Detroit Red Wings. So we're going to get into a little bit of Anthony Mantha. Let's see the good old Hockey DB page. So Mantha, he was drafted 20th overall in the 2013 NHL draft, obviously a first-round pick. He's 25 years old. So he's still in his prime. If not, he's embarking into his prime. Very interesting age, that 25 years old. So just moving along, you could see that throughout his career, he's been good, not great. Started off 36 points, 48 points, 67 games, 48 points. Again, very good, not great. This past year, or this most recent year, before the whole incident happened, we all know what's going on, the pandemic, I would say that Anthony Mantha was having a career year. I don't think I'm going on a limb here when I say Anthony Mantha was having a career year. And here are the statistics to prove it. 38 points in 43 games. 16 of those are goals. If you look at his plus minus, he obviously has a -7, but playing on the Red Wings, what are you expecting? They are by far and large a favorite to get Alexis Lafreniere, who's expected to be this year's first overall pick. But, playing on the Red Wings, you're going to get a -7, absolutely. But I just remember seeing him play in some of the few games this year. Okay, I'll go ahead and say it. I don't watch every Red Wings games, but the games I have seen from him, he's been very, very solid, especially this past year. If memory serves me right, someone may correct me, but I think he had a 4-goal game. The Red Wings ended up winning like 4-3, something like that, and he had all 4 goals, literally putting the team on his back. So really, really interesting player, this Anthony Mantha. You guys may have noticed his size too, 6'5", 234 pounds. I mean, this guy's the definition of a power forward. This guy is a great power forward. Obviously, when he was drafted in 2013, the culture of hockey was a little bit different than it was now. Back in 2013, we were all focusing on size. We were all focusing on the big power forward, that Milan Lucic type player. Partially why the Montreal Canadiens drafted a guy like Michael McCarron. But the special thing with Anthony Mantha, if I were to contrast him to Michael McCarron, who I know a lot of people may laugh at that contrast, but they were drafted in a similar position. So I think that comparison does hold true. Anthony Mantha has the skill set to survive in a much quicker league nowadays. Nowadays, we're not so much focusing on size. We're not so much focusing on like being able to fight or anything like that. It's much more about speed. It's much more about skill. Well, he might not have the elite speed that a guy like Connor McDavid might have, elite speed that a guy like Michael Grabner might have. He does have the skill. He does have a really, really good shot. And although he's very big, he won't really kill players out there. He won't drill them through the boards. But if push comes to shove, he can play a really physical game. And if push comes to shove, he can drop the gloves, okay? So I think he's a very, very interesting player. It is in a lot of teams' interest to offer sheet this guy. I know they're rare, but I think with the Montreal Canadiens offer sheeting Sebastian Aho last year, wow, it seemed like just yesterday that happened. But I think we're going to start seeing it much more often. I think this is going to be the start of something new. So that's what I think about Anthony Mantha. All right, let me take a look at my notes here. In case you guys don't know it, I do want to do a quick recap on the offer sheet compensations. All right, so obviously, being a restricted free agent, Anthony Mantha, he currently only makes $3.3 million, and that's going to expire at the end of the year. So what type of compensations will the Detroit Red Wings get if they decide not to match the offer sheet, if and when it happens? So if it's below $1.3 million, give or take, there is no compensation. They won't get anything. If it's over 1.3 to 2.1, they're going to get a third round pick, okay? It goes on and on. I won't go through them all. But if I were to predict which bracket, for lack of a better word, that Anthony Mantha would fall in, I would say he would fall in this one here, the between 8.4 and 10 million. I think if a team were to give him an offer sheet and give him a serious offer sheet, we're not talking about lowballing him. I think his true value lies between $8 million and $10 million. So that would yield 2 first-round picks, a second-round pick, and a third-round pick. Maybe 2 years ago, I would have said he lands in the one prior, the 6 to 8 million. But with the salary cap constantly evolving and with Anthony Mantha really breaking out this season despite a very short sample size, I do think he falls in the between 8 to 10 bracket. So whoever's going to give him up, whoever's going to offer sheet him, I should say, get ready to give up 2 first-round picks at the bare minimum here. Because if you want to make a serious offer sheet in hopes that the Detroit Red Wings will not match it, that's where it's going to be done, between 8 to 10 million. So with that out of the way, we talked about Mantha as a player, okay? We talked about his skills, his attributes. We also talked about the compensation that would take into considerations if the Detroit Red Wings decide not to match it. Which teams do I think can make a serious offer sheet to Anthony Mantha, okay? I boiled it down to 3, and spoiler alert, I did include them in the thumbnail, but we're going to talk a little bit about those 3. The first one is obviously the Montreal Canadiens. They talked about it in the article. Obviously, being from the province of Quebec, I think that Anthony Mantha would want to sign with his hometown team. I mean, I would guess that. There have been in the past some French superstars that did not want to sign with the Montreal Canadiens. First one that comes to mind is Daniel Briere. I remember when he was not even a restricted free agent, but just an unrestricted free agent. He had the choice to come to Montreal after being with Buffalo. He decided to go to the Philadelphia Flyers. So it is true that not all French-Canadian players want to go to Montreal. But I'm going to venture a guess and say that Anthony Mantha would consider going to Montreal. He seems like a good hometown kid. And, I mean, you would guess it's any French kid's dream to wear that Montreal Canadiens crest, okay? So I'm going to venture a guess and say he would be very interested to come back home, probably be near his family, probably be near his girlfriend, guessing that she's a French Canadian, but he may have met someone in Detroit, who knows? But there are other reasons why the Montreal Canadiens are a compelling team to offer sheet Anthony Mantha. The second one being, they do have the cap space. I did include a link here. Let me see if I still have it. Hopefully I didn't close it. Oh, I'm such a dumbass. I closed it. But the Montreal Canadiens, what the link was going to describe is that they're one of the teams with the most cap space in the NHL, right? They have about 5 million, which at face value, 5 million may not seem like a lot. But when you compare it to the other teams in the NHL, They're one of the top 10 teams when it comes to cap space. I wish GB was here to fact check me, okay? But they definitely, if they were to make some moves, shuffle some salaries around, maybe if they could hopefully get a guy like Carl Alsner, if they could ship him away somehow, somewhere, that could be a load off their back, and they can make space to get a guy like Anthony Mantha. But, with $5 million in cap space, getting an additional $3 million should be really, really easy to shuffle around for the Montreal Canadiens. Now, also, like I said, being from that province, being from that country, I think it would be interesting for Mantha to go there. The second one I'm going to talk about, again, being in the thumbnail, very close to Montreal, and that is Ottawa. I believe it's about an hour and a half, 2 hours away from Montreal, so he would still be close to his family if you're taking that intangible into account. But talking about salary caps, if memory serves me right, the Ottawa Senators are the second team with the most cap space in the NHL. I think the only one above them is the New Jersey Devils. Again, I wish I didn't close that source, but I did. They have around $7 million in cap space. So shuffling around that extra $2 to $3 million should be, again, very, very easy. And another really interesting thing about the Ottawa Senators, as many of you recall, who've been following hockey for a number of years, they currently have 2 first-round picks this current year. We all know with the Erik Karlsson trade, they got San Jose's first-round pick. So maybe giving away this year's first-round pick might not be the end of the world for the Ottawa Senators, because they do have a lot of wealth in that regard. They do have the draft picks to give them away. So that's another really interesting thing to look at. The only little caveat here is that I don't think the Ottawa Senators are the type of team to make a push for the Stanley Cup. I don't think they're the type of team that would necessarily need a guy like Anthony Mantha. Okay, they're more of a rebuilding team, and I don't really see the point of a rebuilding team getting a guy like Anthony Mantha, but it would be something worth considering. I've definitely seen crazier things out there. But speaking about teams who can make a push, the last team I will talk about is the Colorado Avalanche. To my surprise, because oftentimes when we see a team with a lot of great superstars of the likes of Nathan MacKinnon, of the likes of Mikko Rantanen, Gabe Landeskog, Cale Makar, you would expect them to be in salary cap hell. A good example is the Toronto Maple Leafs, but this is the complete opposite with the Colorado Avalanche. Again, I'm going to punch myself because I closed that link, but the Colorado Avalanche sit as one of the teams with the most cap space in the NHL, so they can make a move to add a guy like Anthony Mantha. A few caveats, if I will say, though. Yes, they're a team that can make a push for the Stanley Cup. Okay, yes, they're a team who could really require a guy like Anthony Mantha. He would be extremely valuable to the Colorado Avalanche, giving them depth after that extremely powerful first line of Nathan MacKinnon, Rantanen, and Landeskog. But the one caveat, I will say, they don't have this year's second-round pick. I'm forgetting in which trade they gave up that second-round pick. But I'm not sure of the rules. I guess if they're going to offer sheet him at the end of this year, it would be the 2021 second-round pick that they would need. Someone fact-check me, help me. But anyway, I think that would be a very, very serious consideration. And similar to Bergevin, I think that Joe Sakic is a guy with a lot of balls. He's a very ballsy GM. A good example is when it came to the disputes with Matt Duchene. A lot of people were pressuring him to re-sign Matt Duchene, and he held out. And as a rookie GM, I really applaud him for that. Not a lot of GMs would have done that. They would have either signed him much sooner, or they would have traded him away much sooner for something with much less value. But what Joe Sakic did is that he decided to hold on to Matt Duchene for a little bit longer, and they ended up getting a king's ransom for Matt Duchene. Hey guys, so I'm currently experiencing a pretty big nosebleed. Really came out of nowhere, but thankfully I was pretty much done the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Which team do you think will offer sheet Anthony Mantha, or do you not think there's going to be an offer sheet at all? Let me know in the comments, and also subscribe to the Sin Bin for more hockey videos and more hockey information. Thank you very much, guys.